Hi everyone, my name is Christina Werner and welcome to another video for assignmentsofstamp.com. Today I'm going to be using this stamp set, which is called Let's Celebrate. It's included in the September 2022 card kit. And I wanted to show something that is really fun to do with stamps like this, where you have a lot of overlapping letters or very fine lined words, something like that. Some images in this stamp set would work great for this particular technique, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so let's get right into it. I'm first going to create a watercolor background using some distress inks. I'm using a few different colors of distress ink, and this one decided to just open up on me. I've got some picked raspberry, and I'm just putting this out on a slick palette. I've got mustard seed. These inks are very concentrated, so they're going to be really fun to watercolor with. I've shown you guys some different things to do with them in the past, and this is just one more technique to do with them. This third color is Mermaid Lagoon, and then we've got Wilted Violet. Okay, I just washed my hands, I got that ink off. If any of you find yourselves wearing a lot of distress ink or any inks on your hands and you can't get rid of them, I suggest using a Reinker Craft Scrubby. It comes right off. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a large brush. This is a size 14 Zen brush from Royal & Langnickel. I'm getting it really, really wet. And I'm going to wet down this entire area here. I'm going to be making a really nice gradation of color. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that this watercolor paper is larger than an A2 card, and my card is going to be A2. So when I add color in, I want to make sure that there's a lot more of the first color and a lot more of the last color, because some of the outer edges will get cut off. So I'm going to start with picked raspberry. I thought I'd do kind of almost like a rainbow colorway for this. So I'm starting with picked raspberry, and I'm going to bring that in quite a ways. I'm going to clean off my brush, and I've also got my board tipped this direction so that the pink doesn't start spreading too much. Taking mustard seed, and I'm going to bring that in right here. Clean off my brush. I'm going to grab that Mermaid Lagoon. Get that going right here. And then I'm going to grab some of that Wilted Violet. Put that purple down here at this other end. All right, so now there's a lot of water on this. I'm going to very gingerly kind of tip my board. You can see some of the ink already pooling on this one side. That's totally okay. We can cut that off a little bit. And the colors aren't moving as much as I would like them to move. So I'm going to grab my Distress sprayer, and I'm just going to give this a good spritz. And that really will get those colors moving. I can kind of use my board and tip it and get things mixing right on my watercolor sheet here. I can tip it this direction and get things moving, going this way. Sop up some of that color as it comes down here. It's going to start looking almost like a tie-dye effect. I think it looks really, really neat. And using distress Reinkers from this keeps the colors really intense. Okay, when you're ready for the colors to stop moving, I think I'm about ready. I'm about at that point. I'm going to sop up some more of this puddle of color. And then I'm going to hit this with my heat tool, and that's going to stop the colors from moving, and it's also going to allow me to move on with my project without having to wait a long amount of time for it to dry. My watercolor background is completely dry now. I did want to mention that the paper I'm using today is Canson XL Watercolor Paper. I've taped it to a hard board, and I used some tape to tape it down to this board. I'm going to remove it from the board. We are going to put it back on here in a little bit to do the final step of this technique. But for now, I'm going to remove it from the board, and we are going to be stamping one of the greetings from the stamp set, that one that I referenced earlier. Using my Misty stamp positioning tool, using the large happy birthday. And I'm going to put that just right there, kind of in the center. Actually, I think I want it a little bit higher because there are some secondary gradings that would be fun to use. So let's see, I think the Hope Your Birthday is Awesome up here at the top would be nice. So I'm going to put it just a little bit higher up, maybe about like that. And I'm going to be stamping in an ink for heat embossing. So I'm using some Versamark. Before I even stamp that, I think I better use an anti-static powder tool. So this is the Cottontail from Rabbit Hole Designs, and I'm just going to do a little bit of powder right over my project. And that's going to prevent the embossing powder from sticking to areas where I don't want it to. All right, so I'll stamp this down. Kind of walk my fingertips over that whole stamp. I'll remove it from my MISTI. And I'm just going to use some white embossing powder. This is Alabaster embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. All right, quick and easy. Okay, for this next step, you're going to need a smaller brush. I'm going to switch to a number 2 Zen brush. And I'm also going to get a nice clean piece of paper towel or a rag. I'm bringing it back to my board, and I'm just going to tape down the sides. It's bowing up just a little bit now because of that heat embossing. So I'm just going to tape down these sides just to keep it nice and flat. Just like that. And now what I'm doing is I'm getting some clean water, and I'm going to come in and add the water inside the letters. And I'm just going to let the water sit, and it's sort of going to use the walls of the embossing powder to contain the water. I'm going to keep painting this on. You guys can see that little bit of that glisten with the water, where the water is. Probably going to do 2 or 3 of these letters. And then I'm going to carefully take my paper towel, press that down, and it's going to pick up the color inside the letters. You can see how it's transferred to the paper towel. So I'm going to continue on and paint each one of these letters. So I had a little oops up here. I had a little water splatter. So we're just going to go with that and add some water into the palm of my hand. And then I can add some other little droplets everywhere. It'll sort of start to look a little bit like confetti. I'm going to hit this with my heat tool, and I'm mostly going to concentrate on the area around the words because I don't want to add any additional heat that might melt the embossing powder. I'm now going to be using Chunky A2 Scalloped Rectangles from Simon. And I thought this would just give a really fun kind of border to the watercolor panel. And I'm also going to be stamping and heat embossing on black cardstock this little Hope Your Birthday is Awesome took down at the bottom. So I'm making sure when I die cut this out that I leave a little bit more space down at the bottom. And that works out great because I want to get a little bit of this purple down here. Put some foam adhesive on the back of my watercolor panel, and then I'm putting it onto a top folding note card. Just put that directly in the center. And then I've got some foam adhesive on the back of the secondary greeting. And I'll put that just right there at the bottom. And that finishes the card for today. Super simple and easy. This doesn't have any sharp edges or sequins that might cause a problem for it going through the mail. It's going to be a really great birthday card to mail. It's a little bit thicker right there in the over the top of this greeting, but for the most part, it looks great. So everything I've used today can be found at SSSstamp.com. Make sure you check out the supplies section down below and in the blog post to see all of the supplies I've used, and you can click over and purchase whatever you need. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon.